When I visited my second home to get it ready for rental, I was shocked to find my sister and her 3 kids living there. She laughed and said, "Mom and Dad gave me permission. If you don't like it, call the police." I looked her in the eye and said, "Then I will." That's when she started to panic. My blood ran cold the day I realized the locks on my inherited family home had been changed by my own sister. A sister my parents had secretly let move in, turning my cherished memories into a battleground of betrayal and shocking manipulation. Hi everyone, I'm Chester. I'm 32, and honestly, even now, thinking about this whole situation still ties my stomach in knots. My life in Chicago, working as a financial analyst, was pretty solid. I had a great career, an amazing girlfriend, and a future I was really excited about. But everything changed, absolutely everything, when I went back to Boston to deal with a beautiful old house my grandparents left me, a place absolutely overflowing with childhood memories. I hadn't spoken to my sister, Natalie, in 2 long years, which is why what I found there didn't just surprise me, it shattered my world. Growing up in Boston, our family wasn't wealthy, but we were rich in something else: hard work. My dad, Harold, was a plumber, constantly putting in those grueling 60-hour weeks. And my mom, Diane, a dedicated nurse at Mass General, often pulled brutal night shifts just to make sure Natalie and I had a shot at college. They taught me the value of earning your keep, of financial security, lessons I took to heart, lessons that defined my path. Natalie, my sister, is 4 years younger. And we were incredibly close as kids. She was literally my shadow. Everywhere I went, she was right there, wanting to do everything I did. I taught her how to ride her bike, helped with her math homework, even played the tough older brother, and scared off some jerk who made her cry in 7th grade. I genuinely believed nothing could ever break that bond. But time, it changes people. As we hit our 20s, our lives, our values, just drifted apart completely. While I was relentlessly building my career and chasing financial stability, Natalie, well, she just seemed to float. She dropped out of community college after a single semester, bounced between low-paying retail jobs, and developed this exhausting pattern of constantly needing me, or our parents, to bail her out. Rent, car repairs, you name it. And the house, the beautiful 3-bedroom colonial in Lexington, just outside Boston, that became the epicenter of this whole mess. My grandparents, Martin and Eleanor, bought it back in the 70s. They lived there until they passed away within months of each other about 5 years ago. It sat on this gorgeous half-acre, those huge maple trees turning fiery orange every autumn. Inside, it was classic New England charm, original hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, even my grandmother's beloved farmhouse sink that she refused to replace, no matter how many renovations we did. That house wasn't just a building. It was my second home, a sanctuary. Unlike Natalie, who was always out with friends as a teenager, I spent nearly every weekend with Grandma and Grandpa. I'd help with yard work, learn Grandma's famous apple pie recipe, and listen, absolutely captivated, to Grandpa's old Navy stories. We forged this incredibly special bond. So when they passed, the will reading, while mostly fair, held a big surprise. The house, my house, was left entirely to me. Their lawyers said they wanted someone who truly appreciated its history, someone who cherished it, to have it. Natalie, at the time, seemed okay with it. She was newly married to Kevin, planning a move to Connecticut for his new job. After graduating from Boston College with my finance degree, I dove headfirst into a job with Meridian Financial Group in Chicago. It was a golden opportunity, and I seized it. 6 years of 14-hour days, sacrificed weekends, relentless dedication, it all paid off. I became a senior financial analyst, enjoying a fantastic salary, a growing investment portfolio. My life in Chicago blossomed. I had this amazing downtown condo overlooking Lake Michigan, a tight-knit group of friends, and the most incredible girlfriend, Melissa. She's a pediatric nurse, sharp as a tack, and has the kindest heart. We'd even started talking about getting married. I was planning to propose on our upcoming Hawaiian vacation. Everything, truly everything, was falling into place. With my entire life now rooted in Chicago, The Lexington house sat mostly empty for years. I'd visit when I could, hired a service to keep the lawn neat, kept the utilities running. But, honestly, the property taxes and upkeep were becoming a major drain. I finally decided it just made financial sense to rent it out. The extra income would supercharge my savings for a bigger place for Melissa and me, plus there were some real tax benefits. It was a smart, practical decision, or so I thought. The gap between Natalie and me wasn't just physical distance. It was emotional, too. 3 years ago, after her marriage to Kevin imploded, she just seemed to spiral. Every conversation we had became this tightrope walk, always hinting at needing money. At first, I tried to help. I covered her rent for 2 months, paid for car repairs, sent money for groceries. But the requests never, ever stopped. The absolute breaking point hit 2 years ago during a Christmas visit. I discovered she had opened a credit card in my name and racked up over $8,000 in debt. When I confronted her, she got defensive, claiming she was planning to pay it back and that I owed her because I got the house. And get this, my parents, sided with her, telling me I should just forgive the debt because I was doing so well. I paid off the card to protect my credit score, but that was it. I cut off all financial support right then. Our communication shriveled down to forced birthday texts, then finally, nothing. Our parents would occasionally give me minimal updates. She was struggling to find work, moving into a smaller apartment. I'd still send gifts to my niece and nephews for their birthdays and Christmas, but Natalie never even acknowledged them. I tried to stay in their lives, but she made it impossible. Eventually, I just respected the distance she seemed to want to put between us. So, when I finally made the practical decision to rent out the Lexington house, Natalie was genuinely the furthest thing from my mind. I researched property management companies, settled on one, and after a few calls, scheduled a visit to meet their rep and get the house ready. I had no idea, absolutely no idea, that this routine visit was about to rip open old wounds I desperately thought had finally, mercifully healed. The morning of the discovery was deceptively beautiful, a crisp, clear New England spring day. I'd flown in from Chicago the night before, buzzing with anticipation. My meeting with Taylor from the realty company was set for 10. I got there early, wanting to do a quick walk-through alone. Taylor arrived right on time, all professionalism and efficiency. The rental market here is incredibly strong, she told me. A house like this will be gone in 2 weeks. But as we walked up the front path, something immediately felt wrong. The lawn was perfectly mowed, yes, but the flower beds were bursting with fresh pansies and tulips. I hadn't authorized that. Did your company do some gardening? I asked, genuinely confused. Taylor looked puzzled. No, Mr. Davidson, we wouldn't without your explicit permission. Then I saw it, a bright red tricycle peeking out from behind a bush, a child-sized basketball hoop by the driveway. My blood went cold. That's odd, I murmured, my heart beginning to pound. There shouldn't be any children's toys here. As we reached the front door, the muffled sounds became clear. A television playing cartoons, children's laughter from inside my house. Dread settled deep in my stomach. I pulled out my key, but it wouldn't turn. The locks, they'd been changed. I rang the doorbell, exchanging a horrified glance with Taylor. Footsteps approached, hesitant, then the door swung open, and there she was. Natalie, my sister. She looked so different from 2 years ago, her short hair now long. She was thinner, wearing faded yoga pants and an old Red Sox tee. For a silent, agonizing moment, we just stared. Shock. Pure shock. Chester, she finally stammered, her voice a disbelieving gasp. What are you doing here? My own voice was barely a whisper, filled with incredulity. What am I doing here? Natalie, this is my house. What are you doing here? Over her shoulder, I saw into the living room, my grandparents' furniture, rearranged, toys strewn everywhere, a cartoon blasting from a TV that definitely wasn't mine. Then, my 4-year-old nephew, Tyler, peeked shyly around the corner. Natalie quickly composed herself, a forced, casual tone entering her voice. Oh, we've been living here for a while. Mom and Dad didn't tell you. My mind was reeling. A deafening "no" screamed inside my head. No, I choked out. No one told me anything. Taylor, bless her, cleared her throat awkwardly beside me. Perhaps I should give you some privacy? No, I snapped, my eyes locked on Natalie. Absolutely not. You're my witness. This is the property I hired you to manage. Natalie's eyes flicked to Taylor, then back to me, a hint of defiance hardening her gaze. Well, come in, I guess. It is your house, right? Oh, the passive aggression. I stepped inside, Taylor, hesitantly following. The house, it smelled different. A mix of breakfast cereal, kids' shampoo, and cloying. Scented candles. Natalie had really made herself at home. My 8-year-old niece, Emma, came out from the kitchen, cereal bowl in hand, her eyes wide with genuine delight. Uncle Chester, she shrieked, dropping her bowl to run and hug me. Despite the volcanic anger boiling inside me, I hugged her back. Hey, Emma Bear, I whispered, using her old nickname. You've grown so much. Then 6-year-old Jacob, my middle nephew, appeared at the top of the stairs, curious. Who's that? He asked, not recognizing me after all this time. That's your Uncle Chester, Natalie said, her tone strained. Kids, go upstairs for a bit, please, while we talk. Emma started to protest, but Natalie cut her off. Now, please. As they reluctantly disappeared, I turned to Natalie, fighting to keep my voice from shaking. I need an explanation. Right now. She crossed her arms, defiant. What's there to explain? Kevin and I split. I needed a place to stay. The house was empty. Mom and Dad gave me permission. Permission? Heat flared in my face. They can't give permission for a house they don't own. I own this house, Natalie. Well, you weren't using it, she scoffed, dismissing me. It seems pretty selfish to let it sit empty when your own sister and her kids needed a home. Selfish? I was dumbfounded. You moved into my house without asking me, changed the locks, and I'm the selfish one. Taylor, my realtor, shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Davidson, perhaps we should reschedule. You know what, Chester? Natalie interrupted, her voice rising. If you have such a problem, why don't you call the police? Have your own sister and her kids thrown out on the street. That would make you feel big, wouldn't it? The challenge hung thick and heavy in the air. I looked around, school, books on the dining table, kids' artwork plastered to the fridge, family photos I wasn't in on. The mantle, they had been here for months. Then I will, I said, my voice dangerously low, controlled despite the fury raging inside. If that's what it takes. The color drained from Natalie's face. She clearly hadn't expected me to call her bluff. You wouldn't, she whispered, her defiance replaced by sudden fear. I'm going outside to call our parents, I declared, turning for the door. Then I'm calling my lawyer. You have until tomorrow to explain exactly how this happened, or I'm filing formal eviction proceedings. As I stepped out, I heard Natalie's voice behind me, panicked now. Chester, wait. Let's talk about this. But I kept walking. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. I was calling the people who had betrayed me just as deeply as my sister. Taylor was waiting awkwardly by her car. I stood in my own driveway and dialed my father's number. He answered on the third ring, his voice guarded. Chester, this is unexpected. I'm at the house in Lexington, I stated, no preamble needed. Care to explain why Natalie and her kids are living here? A long pause. Then a heavy, guilty sigh. We were going to tell you. When? I demanded. She's been here for months. The locks are changed. There's a garden planted. The kids are settled. Keep your voice down, my father snapped, his tone hardening. You're overreacting as usual. Overreacting? I exploded. This is my property, Dad. My house. The one Grandma and Grandpa left to me. And what were you doing with it? He countered, his voice dripping with accusation. Nothing. Letting it sit there. While your sister struggled to keep a roof over her children's heads. I heard my mother in the background, asking for the phone. After some muffled whispers, she came on the line. Chester, honey, she began, in that placating, nurse-comforting voice of hers. I know this is a shock, but try to understand. Natalie was in a terrible situation after Kevin left. He hasn't been reliable with child support, and she lost her job. We were helping, but our retirement savings can only stretch so far. So you gave her my house without asking me? I asked, incredulous. We thought you wouldn't mind, she said, her voice tiny now. You have your life in Chicago. You visit maybe once a year. The house was just sitting there. That doesn't make it okay to give away something that isn't yours to give. I insisted, my voice tight. You know how? Natalie is with money. Has she been paying the property taxes? The utilities? More silence. That's what I thought. I pressed on. So, not only did you give away my house without permission, but you've let me keep paying all the expenses for your secret arrangement? We've been helping with the bills, my mother defended weakly. I can't believe this, I said, running a hand through my hair in sheer frustration. Did it ever occur to you to call me? To ask? My father cut back in. We knew what you'd say. You've become so cold, Chester. So wrapped up in your big city life and your money. You've forgotten what family means. Those words cut deep. Coming from the man who taught me responsibility, they stung. That's not fair, I retorted. I've always helped when I could. I only stopped when Natalie committed literal fraud against me. Ancient history, my father dismissed. She was desperate. And she's still desperate. Apparently, I shot back, desperate enough to steal my house. She didn't steal anything. She needed help, and we helped her. That's what family does. I'm coming over tonight, I said, my voice firm, final. We need to talk about this in person. All of us. Fine, he agreed curtly. Dinner at 6. He hung up without a goodbye. I just stood there, phone in hand, trying to process the enormity of the betrayal. My own parents. They had given away my property. Without even a text. Taylor cautiously approached. Mr. Davidson, should I come back another time? I'd almost forgotten she was even there. I'm so sorry about this, Taylor, I managed. Yes, let's reschedule. Clearly, I have a massive family situation to sort out before we can even think about rental plans. She nodded understandingly. Family matters can be complicated. Here's my card. Call me when you're ready. Then she added, for what it's worth, tenant law in Massachusetts is pretty complex, even with family involved. You might want to talk to an attorney. I thanked her and watched her drive away, leaving me utterly alone in the driveway of a house that was legally mine, but felt absolutely alien. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I went back inside. Natalie was slumped on the living room sofa, tense. The kids were upstairs, but I could hear them. I just spoke to Mom and Dad, I said, forcing my voice to be even. I'll be having dinner with them tonight to discuss this. Natalie looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but still defiant. They said I could stay here, Chester. I didn't just break in. That wasn't their decision to make, I replied, sitting across from her. This house belongs to me, Natalie. Legally, they had no right to offer it to you. Where were we supposed to go? She asked, her voice cracking. After Kevin left, everything just fell apart. He drained our bank account, left me with all the bills. I lost the apartment. The kids had already changed schools once that year. Despite my fury, a flicker of sympathy hit me. Why didn't you call me? Why go behind my back? She gave a bitter laugh. Call you? After you cut me off completely? You made it clear. 2 years ago you were done helping me. I cut you off financially after you committed credit card fraud in my name. I reminded her, the anger surging again. That doesn't mean I wouldn't have helped you find a legitimate housing solution. Would you, though? She challenged. You've always been so judgmental about every single choice I've made, always looking down on me. From your perfect life, with your perfect job and perfect girlfriend. I sighed heavily. My life isn't perfect, Natalie. I work 70-hour weeks. I've sacrificed so much to build financial security. Well, some of us don't have that luxury, she snapped. Some of us have 3 kids to feed and clothe and no fancy degree to fall back on. Just then, the children appeared at the bottom of the stairs, drawn by our raised voices. Emma looked anxious, clutching Tyler's hand. Jacob watched me warily. Seeing them, something softened inside me. They were innocent. Hey guys, I said, forcing a smile. Sorry about the commotion. Just surprised to see you all here. Are you going to make us leave? Emma asked directly, her young face so serious. Before I could answer, Natalie jumped in. No one's making anyone leave today. Uncle Chester and I are just having a grown-up discussion. I bit my tongue, refusing to argue in front of them. I need to go check into my hotel and make some calls, I said, standing. Natalie, we are not done. With this conversation, you have 1 week to explain everything honestly, your financial situation, how long you've been here, and what arrangements you've made with mom and dad. Then, we discuss next steps. 1 week? She repeated, incredulous. What happens after a week? That depends entirely on how truthful and cooperative you decide to be, I said, heading for the door. I'll be back tomorrow after I speak with our parents. As I walked out, I heard Tyler ask, Mommy, why is Uncle Chester mad? It broke my heart a little. This mess wasn't his fault, or any of the children's, but it absolutely couldn't continue. Instead of driving straight to a hotel, I found myself pulling into a local coffee shop, desperate to clear my head. Sitting there with an untouched latte, I called Melissa. That's unbelievable, she said after listening to my furious account. Your parents truly overstepped. I know, I sighed. I feel completely betrayed by all of them. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know yet, Mel, I confessed, rubbing my temples. I can't just throw Natalie and the kids out on the street, but I can't let this stand. She has to understand that actions have consequences. Just be careful, Melissa advised, ever the pragmatist. Family conflicts get messy fast. And remember, those kids are your niece and nephews. Her words stayed with me as I finally checked into the Lexington Inn, bracing myself for what promised to be a very, very long week. The next morning, I texted my childhood friend, Anthony. We met for lunch at our old high school diner. I needed a grounded perspective, someone who knew my family but wasn't caught in the emotional crossfire. Anthony greeted me with a bear hug, his expression filled with concern. Man, you look like hell, he observed. Feel like it, too, I admitted. Did you know Natalie was living in my grandparents' house? He winced. Yeah, I'd heard rumors. Saw her at the grocery store a few months back. She mentioned staying at the family place, but didn't elaborate. I figured you knew. Well, I didn't, I stated then. Filled him in on the shocking discovery. Anthony let out a low whistle. That's messed up, Chester. But honestly, not entirely surprising given your family history. What do you mean? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. He looked uncomfortable. Come on, man. Natalie's always been the golden child, hasn't she? Remember when she totaled your car senior year and your parents just bought her a new one while you had to take the bus to work? Oh, I remembered. I'd saved 2 years for that beat-up Honda, only for Natalie to borrow it without asking and wrap it around a tree. My parents were just so relieved she wasn't hurt, they completely brushed aside the theft aspect. And somehow, I was told I should have been more generous about sharing. Or what about your college graduation? Anthony continued. Your whole family showed up 3 hours late because Natalie had a minor fender bender on the way. They missed your summa cum laude recognition, man. That memory still stung. I'd worked myself to the bone for that honor, and my family had seen only the last 10 minutes of a 4-hour ceremony. It's always been this way, I acknowledged, the bitterness creeping into my voice. I'm held to a different standard. Because you can handle it, Anthony said, perfectly mimicking my parents' favorite line. Because you're the responsible one. We ordered lunch, and Anthony filled me in on what he knew about Natalie's situation. Apparently, Kevin, her ex, had run off with a waitress, leaving Natalie with crippling debt and 3 kids. She'd lost her dental receptionist job soon after. Not that I'm defending her moving into your place without permission, Anthony clarified. But she was in a bad spot. She could have called me, I insisted. Instead, she went behind my back. Would you have let her stay if she'd asked? He challenged. I hesitated. I don't know. Maybe temporarily, with clear terms. But that's not the point. The point is, she didn't ask. Anthony nodded. Fair enough. After lunch, I drove to my parents' house in Woburn, steeling myself for what I knew would be an excruciating dinner. The modest split level looked exactly as it had my entire childhood. My mother answered the door, immediately pulling me into a tight hug, as if nothing in the world was wrong. Chester, it's so good to see you, honey. Come in, come in. Dad's watching the game, but dinner's almost ready. The familiar, comforting scent of her pot roast, my favorite, filled the house, a calculated move, I was sure. My father barely looked up from the television as I entered the living room. Chester, he acknowledged with a curt nod, before returning his gaze to the basketball game. Dinner started in stifling silence. My mother Made a few attempts at small talk, asking about my flight, my work, Melissa, until I finally slammed my fork down. Can we just address the elephant in the room? You gave Natalie permission to live in my house without telling me. My father's jaw tightened. We did what we had to do for family. It wasn't yours to give. I repeated for what felt like the 100th time. You abandoned that house, he accused, his voice sharp. You visit once a year at most while it just sits there empty. I didn't abandon anything. I shot back. I've maintained it, paid the taxes, kept the utilities on. That's called being a responsible property owner. While your sister and her children were about to be homeless, my mother interjected, her voice wavering, tears in her eyes. What were we supposed to do, Chester? Call me, I shouted, slamming my fist lightly on the table. Tell me what was happening. Ask if I could help. Any of those would have been better than going behind my back. We knew what you'd say, my father retorted. Ever since that credit card business, you've been cold toward Natalie. You wouldn't have helped. You don't know that because you never gave me the chance. I argued, my voice tight with indignation. And even if I had said no, that would have been my right. It's my house. Your grandfather would be ashamed, my father said, his voice low and cutting. He didn't leave you that house so you could hoard it while family suffered. That hit me hard, right below the belt. Don't you dare tell me what Grandpa would think. I roared, my voice shaking with raw anger. He left me that house because he knew I would respect it. He also taught me about honesty and respect for other people's property, lessons that seemed to have been completely lost on this family. My mother began to cry openly. We were desperate, Chester. Natalie showed up on our doorstep with 3 children and nowhere to go. We've been helping financially for years, but we're on a fixed income now. The house seemed like the perfect solution. So, you just gave her a key? I asked. My gaze narrowed. My parents exchanged a guilty glance. Actually, my father admitted, reluctantly, she already had a key from when she used to check on the place for you. That was years ago, before our huge falling out. I'd asked Natalie to check on the house occasionally when she lived nearby, but I genuinely thought she'd return the key. Did you at least discuss expectations with her? Rent? Utilities? Another uncomfortable glance between them. We've been helping with the utilities, my mother mumbled. The understanding was she'd get back on her feet and eventually find her own place. And when was that supposed to happen? I pressed the pieces, clicking into place. It's been how long now? About 6 months, my father confirmed, avoiding my eyes. Since December. 6 months. For 6 agonizing months, they had kept this from me. Did it ever occur to you to tell me my sister was getting divorced? I asked, the hurt in my voice palpable. That my niece and nephews were going through such upheaval? You made it clear you wanted distance from Natalie, my mother said defensively. Distance from financial exploitation, I corrected fiercely. Not from important family news. I would have wanted to know that. I would have wanted to help the kids, at least. You're always so judgmental, my father shouted back, his own anger boiling over. Always looking down on Natalie from your high horse. Not everyone can have your perfect life, Chester. My life isn't perfect, Dad. I yelled, pushing away from the table. I've worked damned hard for everything I have. Natalie has made one bad decision after another, and everyone excuses it because she's had it rough. Well, guess what? Life is rough sometimes. That doesn't give her the right to take what isn't hers. She needed help, my mother sobbed. Then you should have helped her yourselves, instead of offering up my property. I roared, finally losing all composure. Or called me. Or helped her apply for assistance programs. Literally anything else would have been more appropriate. I stood up. I couldn't do this anymore. I can't do this right now. You both know what happened was wrong, but you're so used to making excuses for Natalie, you can't even admit it. Where are you going? My mother cried, alarmed. Back to my hotel. I need to think. Chester, please, she pleaded. We're family. We can work this out. Family doesn't go behind each other's backs, I said. Heading for the door, my voice laced with bitter finality. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family respects boundaries. My father's parting shot followed me out. You've changed, Chester. Chicago has made you cold. As I drove away, a painful clarity hit me. They had never, ever, truly respected my ownership of that house. In their minds, it was always family property that I was just selfishly hoarding. No wonder they felt completely justified in giving it to Natalie. The crushing question now was, what the hell was I going to do about it? The very next day, I knew I had to go back to the house. I needed a deeper conversation with Natalie to truly understand what she'd been told and, more importantly, what her game plan was. When I pulled up around 11, I was surprised to see 3 extra cars in the driveway, alongside Natalie's old beat-up Subaru. I rang the doorbell. After a moment, Natalie answered, looking completely flustered. "Oh, Chester," she stammered. "I didn't expect you today." From inside, I could hear women's voices, laughter. "Is this a bad time?" I asked, though frankly I didn't care one bit if it was. "I have some friends over," she admitted, reluctantly. "It's our weekly coffee thing. I think this conversation takes precedence over coffee with friends," I said firmly, stepping past her into the hallway. In the living room, my living room, sat 2 women, Natalie's age, sprawled comfortably on my grandparents' sofa, mugs and pastry plates scattered around them. They looked up, their expressions a mix of curiosity and blatant disapproval. "This is my brother, Chester," Natalie explained, her tone brittle. "Chester, these are my friends, Lauren and Heather." Both women gave me icy stares. I knew instantly they'd heard Natalie's version of events, and I was the villain. "Nice to meet you," I said, completely devoid of sincerity. "I need to speak with my sister privately." Lauren, a thin woman with a sharp haircut, made no move to leave. "We know all about the situation, Chester. Natalie has nothing to hide from us." "Be that as it may," I replied, my voice even. "This is a family matter." Heather, larger with bright red hair, finally stood up. "Come on, Lauren. Let's give them some space. We'll check on you later, Nat." The pointed glare she shot me made it crystal clear checking in would happen the second they were out the door. Once they were gone, I really took in the room. What I saw utterly horrified me. Mail, addressed to Natalie at this address, was stacked on the entry table, some of it months old. Family photos, their family photos, had replaced some of my grandparents' artwork on the walls. The big bookshelf that once held my grandfather's cherished history collection now displayed children's books and knickknacks. "You've been here a while?" I observed, my voice flat. Natalie crossed her arms defensively. "Since December," I told you that. "And you've clearly made yourself quite at home." I slowly walked through the house, taking inventory of the changes. The dining room now had a children's art station. The study, once Grandpa's quiet sanctuary, had been converted into Jacob's bedroom, complete with sports, posters, and scattered toys. But then, I stopped, dead in my tracks. In the formal dining room, my grandmother's beautiful cherrywood china cabinet. It had been painted a sickening, chalky white, and several of the delicate china pieces inside, precious heirlooms passed down through generations, were just gone. "What happened to Grandma's china?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Natalie shifted uncomfortably. "The kids broke a few pieces accidentally. They were playing. A ball hit the cabinet. So you painted a 200-year-old cherry cabinet white." My voice was barely a whisper. She shrugged. "It looks more modern now." The dark wood was depressing. Something inside me snapped. A primal rage. "You had no right to alter anything in this house, Natalie. This isn't yours. It's just paint, Chester. It can be stripped if you care. That much. That's not the point." I roared, finally losing my cool. "You've been acting like you own this place. You moved in, redecorated, invited your friends over, treating it like it's your home." "It is my home," she screamed back. "Maybe not legally on paper, but it's more my home than yours. You abandoned it." "I did not abandon anything," I snarled through gritted teeth. "I've maintained this property, paid every bill, while you live your perfect life in Chicago," she spat venomously. "Some of us don't have that luxury. Some of us have real problems, and some of us make responsible choices." I countered, my voice shaking. "Your real problems are largely of your own making, Natalie." Her eyes flashed with pure anger. "You heartless jerk. Not everyone gets the opportunities you've had." "We had the exact same opportunities," I fired back. "Same parents, same schools, same chance at college. I worked my way through school while you partied and dropped out. I built a career while you bounced from job to job." I saved money while you racked up debt. You don't know anything about my life, she said, her voice bitter. You have no idea what it's like to be a single mother of 3. You're right. I don't. I conceded, softening slightly. But I do know what it's like to have family. Members who take advantage of you repeatedly, who steal from you, who go behind your back. The children, drawn by our escalating voices, had reappeared at the top of the stairs. Emma looked, close to tears, clutching Tyler's hand. Jacob glared at me with undisguised hostility. Tyler just looked confused. Kids, go back upstairs, Natalie ordered, her voice trembling. Why is Uncle Chester yelling at you? Jacob demanded, refusing to move. Because your uncle only cares about money and things. Natalie shouted loudly, making absolutely no attempt to shield them from the conflict. Not about family. That was a low blow. A disgusting manipulation, using the children as emotional weapons. That's not true, I said, struggling to modulate my tone. I care very much about family. Family that respects each other. Respect. Natalie scoffed, a harsh, humorless laugh. You want to throw your sister and her children out on the street and call that respect? I never said, you'll have to drag us out, she continued, playing directly to the kids. Call the police on your own flesh and blood. Stop it, Natalie. I warn, my patience completely gone. Don't manipulate the kids like this. I turned, walking into the kitchen, desperate to collect myself. And that's when I saw it. A stack of papers on the counter, right next to Natalie's laptop. Legal documents. I shouldn't have looked, I know, but something compelled me. I glanced at the top page. It was a letter from an attorney, and it was about challenging the Davidson estate distribution. My blood ran ice cold. I picked up the papers, scanning them quickly. Natalie had been consulting a lawyer about contesting our grandparents' will, nearly 5 years after the fact, claiming the house should have been split equally between us. Natalie appeared in the doorway, saw what I was holding, and lunged for the papers. Those are private. You're trying to challenge the will? I asked, incredulous, utterly disgusted. After all this time? She snatched the papers away. I was just exploring my options. Your options? I repeated, the word laced with bitter sarcasm. Your option is to accept that this house legally belongs to me, and that you're living here only by my grace at this point. Grace, she scoffed. You didn't even know I was here until 2 days ago. Because you and our parents conspired to keep it from me. I shouted. And now I find out you've been planning to try to take the house legally, after moving in without permission, after damaging family heirlooms, and changing the locks. This should have been half mine to begin with, she insisted, her voice tight with resentment. Grandma and Grandpa played favorites, just like Mom and Dad always did. Only they favored you instead of me for once. The accusation was so ludicrous, so outrageous, I almost laughed. Played favorites. I scoffed. I spent every weekend with them while you couldn't be bothered to visit. I helped Grandpa with his physical therapy after his stroke. I drove Grandma to her doctor's appointments. Where were you for any of that? I had my own life. And later, I had children to take care of. Exactly, I snapped. You made your choices. I made mine. They left me the house because I was the one who cared for them and the property. That's not fair, she insisted, on the verge of tears. Life isn't fair. I shot back, my voice hard. But you know what's really unfair, Natalie? You telling everyone in town that I abandoned this property so you could claim it. You letting your kids believe this house will be theirs someday. Her expression confirmed my suspicion. She hadn't answered, but I had my answer. You've been telling them that, haven't you? That this is their permanent home. This stops now, I declared with quiet, deadly intensity. I'm calling my lawyer. Today, you'll be receiving formal eviction papers. You wouldn't, she gasped, a primal fear in her voice. Watch me. I shot back. You've been manipulating this situation from the start. I might have been willing to work something out if you'd been honest, but this, I gestured to the legal papers she clutched. This crosses every line. The children will be my primary concern, I interrupted, hardening my resolve. I'll make sure they have safe housing, but it won't be here, and it won't be under these false pretenses. I pulled out my phone and, despite Natalie's frantic protests, took photos of the legal documents. Then I headed for the door. You have 30 days, I said over my shoulder. I suggest you start packing and looking for a new place to live. You'll regret this, she called after me, her voice cracking with raw emotion. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. As I got into my rental car, I could hear the children crying inside the house. It broke my heart, truly. But I couldn't back down now. Natalie had pushed too far. If I didn't establish clear boundaries, this toxic pattern would never, ever end. Sitting in my car, I immediately called a local attorney specializing in landlord-tenant law and made an appointment for that afternoon. Then, I texted Anthony. It's worse than I thought. Need a drink, badly. The situation had escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. There would be no easy resolution, but I was done being manipulated and taken advantage of by my own family. Back in my hotel room that evening, I crashed onto the bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. Mentally and emotionally, I was utterly spent. My meeting with Sarah Blackwell, the real estate attorney, had been informative, yes, but also deeply unsettling. Massachusetts tenant law was incredibly complicated, even though Natalie had absolutely no legal right to be in the house. Evicting her would be a brutal, messy affair. It would traumatize the children, and it would, without a doubt, permanently fracture our family. My phone rang, Melissa, calling for our evening check-in. Hey, I answered, not even trying to hide the exhaustion in my voice. That bad, huh? She asked sympathetically. I poured out everything. The desecrated heirlooms, the legal consultation, the children being dragged into this ugly conflict. Oh, Chester, she sighed. What a nightmare. I don't know what to do, Mel. On one hand, I'm furious. I want to stand my ground. But on the other hand, those kids. My voice trailed off. Those kids are innocent, she finished for me. And they're your family, too. Exactly, I said, a fresh wave of frustration washing over me. But if I back down now, what message does that send? That anyone can take advantage of me, and I'll just accept it? That there are no consequences for Natalie's actions? Melissa was quiet for a moment. What if you looked for a third option, she suggested. Something that establishes your boundaries, but doesn't punish the children? Like what? I asked, desperate. I don't know exactly, she admitted, but there has to be a middle ground between letting Natalie stay consequence-free and putting 3 innocent kids through a traumatic eviction. After we hung up, her words resonated. A third option, something that protected the children while still holding Natalie accountable for her choices. The next morning, I met my financial advisor, Julian Matthews, who happened to be in Boston for a conference. Over breakfast, I laid out the entire messy financial situation. What are my options here? I asked. Once he was up to speed, Julian considered it thoughtfully. Several, actually. You could sell the property and use some of the proceeds to help your sister find suitable housing, perhaps, with a structured arrangement where payments go directly to a landlord, not to her. That would solve the immediate problem, I acknowledged, but I'm not sure I'm ready to sell a family property with so much history, so much meaning. Alternatively, Julian continued, you could formalize a rental agreement with your sister, even below market rate, but with strict conditions regarding property maintenance, timely partial rent payments, and perhaps mandatory financial counseling. She's proven herself untrustworthy, I pointed out. What's to stop her from violating any agreement we make? Legal consequences, clearly spelled out in the agreement, he replied, and perhaps a third-party guarantor or co-signer. Though I gather your parents might not be ideal for that role. As we discussed these options, my phone buzzed with an unknown local number. I excused myself. Is this Chester Davidson? A male voice asked. Yes. Who's calling? This is Kevin Travers, Natalie's ex-husband. I understand there's a situation with the house. I was momentarily stunned. How did you get my number? Your mother gave it to me, he said. Look, I know we've never met, but I think we should talk. Natalie called me last night in hysterics about you evicting her and the kids. I agreed to meet him that afternoon at a coffee shop near his workplace in Cambridge. I honestly wasn't sure what to expect. Natalie had painted him as this deadbeat monster, but I needed to hear his side. Kevin turned out to be nothing like I'd imagined. He was clean-cut, articulate, and seemed genuinely, deeply concerned about his children. After some awkward introductions, We got straight to it. I want to be clear, he began, that I never abandoned my family, despite what Natalie might have told you. Our marriage fell apart, yes, but I've been fighting for fair custody and visitation since day one. She implied you left them without support, I said carefully. Kevin sighed heavily. I've never missed a child support payment. Not once. I have the records to prove it. Natalie has consistently interfered with my court-ordered visitation and poisoned the kids against me. This completely contradicted the story I'd heard from my parents and Natalie. If that's true, why haven't you taken legal action? I asked, my mind reeling. I have, he said, pulling out his phone and showing me court documents. I've been back to family court 3 times in the past 2 years. The latest hearing is next month. Natalie keeps finding ways to delay and obstruct. As Kevin shared more details about their messy divorce and the aftermath, a chillingly clear picture emerged. Natalie wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was someone who deliberately manipulated situations to her advantage, using the children as pawns. Don't get me wrong, Kevin added, seeing my expression. I'm not claiming to be perfect. Our marriage had real problems on both sides, but the narrative that I abandoned them is simply false. Why are you telling me all this? I asked him, genuinely curious. He looked me straight in the eyes. Because those are my kids, too, and I care what happens to them. Natalie creates chaos and instability in their lives. They need structure and consistency. What would you suggest I do about the house situation? He paused, then said, honestly, I think you need to set firm boundaries with Natalie. She responds to clear consequences, not to generosity. She just sees that as weakness to exploit. He paused again. But whatever you do, please consider the impact on Emma, Jacob, and Tyler. They're caught in the middle of adult problems they didn't create. After meeting with Kevin, I just drove around town for a while. The complexity of the situation had deepened profoundly, but so had my resolve. I had to find a solution that was both just and compassionate. That evening, I dove into researching affordable housing options in the area. Massachusetts had several programs for single parents, some with supportive services that could genuinely benefit Natalie. I also looked into family therapy resources, wondering if professional help might be the key to healing, not just for Natalie and me, but for all of us. On Sarah Blackwell's recommendation, I consulted Dr. Marcus Reynolds, a family therapist specializing in high-conflict situations. His insights were invaluable. From what you're describing, he said, after I outlined the whole agonizing story, your sister displays patterns consistent with entitled dependency. She's learned that manipulation and victimhood get her needs met. That sounds accurate. I agreed, my heart heavy. But how do I break that pattern without causing further harm, especially to the children? Clear boundaries with compassionate support, he advised. Make it crystal clear what you will and won't tolerate, but also offer concrete assistance that empowers rather than enables. By the end of that emotionally draining week, I had a plan, a structured, meticulously thought-out plan. It wasn't perfect, and it would demand significant compromise from everyone involved, but it offered a path forward that I could live with, morally and emotionally. The plan included a 3-month timeline for Natalie to find new housing, with my financial assistance covering the security deposit and the first month's rent. Her continued occupancy of the Lexington house during those 3 months would be strictly contingent on proper care of the property and weekly progress updates on her housing search. Financial counseling would be a non-negotiable condition of my assistance. I committed to establishing an education fund for Emma, Jacob, and Tyler, and I would have regular, guaranteed visitation rights with my niece and nephews. I even requested that my parents contribute to this transition plan if they truly wished to be involved. It wouldn't be easy. I had no illusions that Natalie would immediately embrace it, but it was a solution I could stand behind, one that respected my legal rights while honoring my moral responsibility to my family. Armed with this comprehensive plan, I scheduled one final meeting at the house with Natalie. I was prepared for any reaction. When I arrived, Natalie was thankfully alone. The children were at school, truly for the best. This conversation had to happen between adults, without the shield of emotional manipulation. She let me in silently, her posture still defensive, but noticeably less hostile than before. The house was tidier, and I spotted boxes in a corner. She had, at least, started sorting things. I've been thinking a lot about this situation, I began, sitting at the kitchen table. About our family history, about the kids, about what's fair to everyone involved. Natalie remained standing, arms crossed, watching me intently. And I'm not going to file formal eviction proceedings. Her posture visibly relaxed. A wave of undeniable relief washed over her face. So, you can stay? Temporarily, but with conditions. I clarified, then systematically outlined my entire proposal. As I expected, she balked immediately. The financial counseling, the 3-month timeline. That's not enough time to find a decent place. She protested, her voice rising. It is, if you actively search and are realistic about what you can afford. I countered, my voice firm. I've researched housing in this area extensively. There are options within your budget, especially with the assistance I'm offering. And if you refuse my conditions, Natalie, then we go back to the legal route. These terms are more than fair. They address your needs while respecting my property rights. She was quiet for a long moment, truly considering. What about the kids' school? They're settled here. The districts I've identified would keep them in the same schools, I assured her. I thought of that. Another long pause. Then, unexpectedly, her eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice small, fragile. After everything I did, moving in without permission, altering the house, the legal consultation, you'd still help us? Because you're my sister, I said simply, meeting her gaze. And those children are my family. And because, despite everything, Natalie, I don't believe you acted out of pure malice. I think you were desperate, and you made poor choices. She sank into a chair across from me, her shoulders slumping. I was so angry with you, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. For having it all together. For inheriting the house. For cutting me off financially. It felt good to take something from you for once. Her honesty, painful as it was a crucial step. A crack in the wall she'd built. I understand that. Anger, I said quietly. But Natalie, you've been angry at the wrong things. I worked hard for what I have. The house came to me because I maintained a relationship with Grandma and Grandpa. I was there for them. I know, she whispered. Deep down, I've always known that. It was easier to blame you than to face my own mistakes. That admission, that moment of raw truth, opened the door to the most honest conversation we'd had in years. For the next 2 hours, we talked. We unraveled years of resentments and misunderstandings that had festered between us since childhood. I learned about her struggles with postpartum depression after each child, her profound feelings of inadequacy compared to me, her genuine difficulties navigating single parenthood. In turn, I shared the deep hurt I'd felt from her credit card fraud, her dismissive attitude towards my work ethic, and the subtle ways she'd turned our parents against me over the years. I never meant to come between you and Mom and Dad, she said. Though, quietly, we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Regardless, I insisted, we all need to establish healthier patterns. All of us. By the time the children came home from school, Natalie and I had reached an agreement we could both live with. She would accept my terms, and I would do everything in my power to ensure the transition was as smooth as possible for Emma, Jacob, and Tyler. That evening, I invited our parents over and presented the plan to them. My father was initially resistant, still seeing it as me asserting control, not helping. This is still you forcing Natalie out, he argued, his voice tight. Just with a nicer package. No, Dad, I corrected him, firmly but gently. This is me establishing boundaries while still being compassionate. There's a crucial difference. My mother, ever the practical one, focused on the logistics. Where will they go? What about the children's routines? I walked them through the extensive research I'd done on housing options and support services. I've thought this through carefully, but I need your support, not your undermining. After much discussion and some lingering tension, they reluctantly agreed my solution was reasonable. More importantly, they finally, acknowledged their role in enabling the situation. We should have talked to you first, My mother admitted, her voice filled with regret. We were trying to help one child, without considering the impact on the other. We've always expected more from you because you seemed capable of handling it. My father added, his voice softened, that wasn't always fair. It wasn't a perfect, Hollywood-style reconciliation, but it was a start. A real, honest start. The next 6 months were incredibly challenging as we implemented the plan. Natalie found a 3-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from the Lexington house, in a good school district, with genuinely affordable rent. With my help for the deposit and first month, she secured a lease. The financial counseling was a struggle at first. Natalie bristled at someone scrutinizing her spending, but gradually, she began to see the value in budgeting and planning. She even found a new job as an administrative assistant at a local community college, which offered tuition benefits she could potentially use to finally complete her degree. As for the house, I ultimately decided selling was the best option. The property, despite its memories, now held too many complicated, painful emotions. After some much-needed renovations, including restoring my grandmother's china cabinet, thankfully, I listed it with Taylor from the realty company. The sale closed quickly. While most of the proceeds went towards building my future with Melissa, I set aside a significant portion for education funds for Emma, Jacob, and Tyler. Whatever issues existed between the adults and the family, those children deserved every chance at opportunity. My relationship with my niece and nephews improved dramatically once the housing conflict was resolved. I made regular visits to their new apartment, took them on outings, and became a consistent, stable presence in their lives. Emma, especially, seemed to thrive with this additional support, even showing an early interest in finance that honestly reminded me a lot of myself. The healing with my parents took longer. Years of ingrained patterns don't just vanish overnight, but our conversations became more honest, less layered with unspoken resentments. They finally began to acknowledge Natalie's responsibility for her choices, rather than reflexively defending her or expecting me to fix everything. A year after that shocking discovery that had upended my entire world, Melissa and I were married in Chicago. My entire family was there, my parents, Natalie, the children, even Kevin, who had successfully gained more consistent visitation rights with his kids. The family dynamics were different now, more balanced, more respectful. I finally felt a sense of respect I hadn't before. Life lessons rarely come easily, and this one had been excruciatingly painful. I learned that family loyalty doesn't mean abandoning personal boundaries, that truly helping someone doesn't always mean giving them exactly what they want, that deeply ingrained patterns from childhood will persist into adulthood unless consciously addressed. Most importantly, I learned that true compassion must include accountability. By holding Natalie responsible while still offering genuine support, I gave her the opportunity to grow, to truly become independent, rather than remain trapped in a cycle of dependency. The path to healing our family didn't lie in endless accommodation, but in honest, uncomfortable communication and the establishment of clear, appropriate boundaries. Looking back now, I realized that what started as a property dispute was really about something much, much deeper: respect, responsibility, and the incredibly complicated, sometimes heartbreaking bonds of family. Our grandparents' house wasn't just a physical structure. It was a symbol of our family legacy and the values we claimed to uphold. In the end, the question wasn't really about who deserved to live in that house. It was about what kind of family we wanted to be going forward. The answer required sacrifice and immense growth from all of us, but the relationships we've painstakingly rebuilt are stronger, more authentic, for having weathered that storm. So, let me ask you, have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? What did you learn from that experience? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life tales about navigating complex family dynamics. Your support truly means the world to me. And remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful growth. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all strength and wisdom on your own family journeys.